Welcome everyone to our Puzzle HR Summer Symposium, and this one being AI and Human Resources, which everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. AI in general is a passion for me. I love where technology has come from, and I just think back to the very, very early 2000s before it hit the 2010s. When I was in AT&T, everything was just manual. I had manual paper contracts. I had to use the phone to call everything in. And it was a very tedious process across the board. And as we go in evolution, we get easier and easier thanks to things like artificial intelligence. So today we get to have that general discussion with Michael here. So instead of me just talking and talking, I should probably tell you who I am, right? My name is Jared Pearson. I'm the Director of Learning and Development here at PuzzleHR. I've been at PuzzleHR for about 2.5 years now. Loved every step of the way. Prior to that, my teeth being cut in leadership were in AT&T, working there for leadership for 13 years, then moving on to a company called Essilor of America before joining the PuzzleHR Corporation. I promise you folks, I am not the star of today's show. I have a fabulous partner in Michael here, and I'd love to give him an opportunity to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jared. Well, everyone, great to be here today. Equally excited as Jared is. A little bit about myself. Currently, I'm the CEO of a company called Krista AI, which is a AI-led collaboration and orchestration solution. We are deep embedded in AI, but prior to that, I spent over 30 years in the human capital management space, working for companies like ADP, Paychex, and my last role was the president and chief operating officer for 15 years at Paylocity. So I have an unbelievable passion for HR that's only equaled by my relatively newfound passion for AI, and bringing those two worlds together is something I absolutely love to do, which is why I love our Puzzle HR partnership and relationship so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michael. Really excited about this conversation. And as some folks on this symposium may know about me, I am not one of those death by PowerPoint kind of guys. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen, and this is going to be based on a conversation or fireside chat, if you will, with Michael answering some really, really pointed questions on AI and how it stands in that marketplace today. Group here, I invite you to use the chat functionality. Please, if you have questions that you'd like to add to this, we would love to take your questions and help out in real time. Try to stump us. That is always the goal. We're happy to say, you know what, we don't have the information if we don't, but we will absolutely get back to you. Michael's a pretty bright guy. I think it might be hard to stump him overall. So Michael, are you ready, my friend?
I am ready for Stump the Chump. Let's go.
All right, let's do this. And the first one, got to throw you a softball.
Okay.
So today, is what we have in the AI space machine learning, or is it artificial intelligence? And what's the difference with those?
Yeah, it's a great question. We get this a lot, and it's one of the more fun ones to answer. A little bit of background, of course, a lot of people, even myself, probably think, AI didn't become a thing until, well, the emergence of our friends at OpenAI and ChatGPT ended up on the scene. And by the way, we call that the Great Awakening because it did change everything. But actually, AI has been around for decades, and people like our founder have actually been writing in NLP and other forms of AI for over 20 years. So the answer to your question specifically is both are correct. So AI is kind of an umbrella category of what we're trying to accomplish, and the penultimate idea is kind of what we're starting to see now with this conversational interface and being able to have a human-like interaction. That's the ultimate goal. But there are amazing numbers of AIs besides that kind. So that's generative AI that we're all pretty familiar with. Behind that, there are tons. Machine learning is actually a form of AI that goes into making all the magic possible. As just an example, Krista uses over 15 types of AI, generative AI just being one of those. So the answer is all of the above. And it takes all of them in concert with one another to actually bring real value into your enterprise. Gen AI alone just won't get you very far.
Got it. So Michael, it's safe to say that it's not just one model or one item that we're using. There's multiple different pieces that talk to each other here.
There really are. Yeah. So if you think about what has to happen sometimes, for instance, an example would be that AI has to make a decision or prediction, sometimes we'll call it. So you call it predictive AI. So it'll get a form of content and it has to start by deciding, do I actually know what this is so that I know what to reference and then use generative AI to create and fashion the reply. So it's kind of generative AI is the bread. It reads your request to understand it, but then it needs to go and see if it knows what it is. That's predictive AI. And then once it thinks it knows the answer, re-engages generative AI to come back in a natural language way to respond to your question.
So, Michael, you touched on this a little bit, and you mentioned that chat GPT, that magical word that almost everyone immediately associates with AI.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it popped out of nowhere, it just showed up, and then all of a sudden everyone's talking about it and using it. So, with things like chat GPT and other models that are out there, can you talk a little more on the growth of these models and what speed are they learning at? How fast are they evolving?
Yeah, this is absolutely moving faster than maybe any technological shift or evolution that we've ever seen. The more recent, like cloud and digital, while unbelievably explosive and moved pretty quickly to transform our businesses, nothing like the rate of change that we're seeing here with these models. And I think the nature of AI is why, right? It's the machines which are getting constantly better, faster, and more capable, as well as the models themselves. So you described a couple things. There's the AI chips, which is a piece of it. We always hear about NVIDIA, but there are others out there. They're clearly the leader. These chips, these what we call GPUs versus CPUs, that's the first component that really makes AI a viable thing today and not so much in the past. While a lot of the underlying technology, machine learning, things like that was out there, without the GPU's capabilities to process at a rate that simply couldn't be processed by CPUs, what we're seeing through the emergence of an OpenAI and others wasn't possible before that. And those chips are moving at rapid pace. I think almost it feels like every quarter NVIDIA comes out and announces the next generation of chip and that can do more and faster and better. And those are really important to all of us in the AI space because that's the starting point. And then the models themselves absolutely are growing and getting better and learning more all the time. And we're also getting into bespoke models, right? So we're getting into models that aren't just for general, use and query. We're starting to get into this ability to either build our own or leverage third-party models that are specific to certain tasks or outcomes that allows them to remain very narrow in focus, which is important. See, the strength and the weakness of generative AI is at the end of the day, it's taking a dot plot of all of the data it has, and it's finding the center point of which one it thinks is the right blend of those things. The bigger the database, the harder it is to narrow down on exactly the answer or decision or outcome you're looking for. So in some cases, you need a much more bespoke and narrow data set so that you're not confusing the generative AI and not getting as specific an outcome or answer to what you're trying to solve for.
Thank you. So, when we look at AI, one of those big questions, I know it was one of the first ones that popped up for me when we implemented other AI solutions in other places, were ethics. So, taking ethics into consideration, how can we ensure that AI systems are fair and unbiased while they're making their decisions?
Yeah, wonderful question. There's a lot of debate about this, right? It's probably after security, the number two maybe concern that an organization would have, but not even an organization, right? The public in general has these same concerns. Well, let's start with what causes the problem. So these models are honestly, they're built and maintained by people. So the AI, this is part of what I love about HR's role that we'll start to get into. AI needs mentors. AI is much more like or as much like a person as it is software. So we're going to have to change the way we think about AI versus the classic, I bought a payroll system or an HR system or a CRM system that just does exactly what it's supposed to do. AI is almost alive and it evolves and it changes and it grows and it learns. And the way it does that is by humans feeding it. And there's two ways. One is you feed it data sets of information that are labeled, as we call it, and that teaches the model. And then over time, when it runs into issues, if you have the right solutions provider with you where it doesn't know the answer to something, instead of one of the pitfalls today, which is hallucinations, which means when an AI doesn't know what to say, it makes it up. It's a storyteller. And that's, part of the beauty of it, but it's also what makes it difficult to bring into the enterprise is it's going to make something up if it's left to its own devices. And it's probably inaccurate, false, or biased potentially. And that's where you start to engage these concepts like human in the loops and confidence scoring, things that stop it in its tracks, and another form of AI that says, hold on a second, generative AI, there's something here that doesn't look right. We need to take a step back and we need to bring in a human to validate this. So that's number one. Number two, when you start thinking about this, this is another reason that using publicly available models and just accessing what's on the internet may not be the right solution for you in the enterprise. Whether you're using this in HR or any part of your business, you're then exposing yourself to those inaccuracies or those biases that might have come in from the way that that particular model was engineered. But worry not, there are plenty of ways to build your own model so that you just have your data. And then when it's your data procured without accessing the outside world, and then it's your people that you've assigned mentors inside the organization to the AI to help it learn when it doesn't know the answer and get it right. Now you will build a model that you're going to be comfortable with, is free of inaccuracy, free of biases and things like that. But you'll always have to nurture that, right? You'll always have to stay on top of that. People will always be doing that. And while the AI will never forget anything that it's taught, it doesn't take a holiday or vacations or time off. As things change, you need to educate it on what you want it to do or operate differently, which is all very doable.
So here's one of those touchy subjects. We know there's multiple different generations in the workplace today and multiple different personality sets.
Yeah.
I personally am of the personality of my data, use my data any way you want to, where other people may be a lot more privatized with their data. So with that in mind, what measures should we take to protect employee privacy when using AI tools so it's more inclusive for everyone in the workplace?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch to unpack here. So, we'll try not to go too far off the reservation. So number one is I do think you've brought up a really important point, and another one of the reasons I think HR has to be at the front of the line when it comes to bringing AI inside of a company. And I mentioned one already, which is there are people that need to be mentors, and HR is in a great position to figure out that. And then L&D as a function really should start thinking about its role in keeping the models educated and trained the same way it does its people as things in the business change, right? New products, new processes, et cetera, new tools, what have you. So that's number one. But probably more specific, you also have to worry about security and privacy. It has now become the number one buying concern on the enterprise buyer statistically when they start thinking about bringing this in. And people are just starting to realize that what we put into these models that we call open models like OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic, those things are used to train their model. That is not secure and sensitive data necessarily, unless you upgrade to certain models that you actually subscribe to. So we've got this problem where we know our people are probably jumping over to ChatGPT to say, hey, help me summarize this article or write this email. And who knows what they're putting into it. Samsung actually just reported, unfortunately, a public data breach simply because their employees were using a model like that. And they were using it to be more productive, but they were giving it confidential information from the employer. So we have to think about all those things. And among that is protecting our employees. If there's data we're putting into it that is sensitive information, you need to be sure that you're working with a vendor that is going to provide you the type of model where the data is never trained, that's also capable of protecting PIA and PHI, et cetera, right? So we need to make sure that those types of things are in place. Not every vendor does it. Not every off-the-shelf solution will do it. So that's part of the criteria that a CHRO team or a CTO team or the combination of those need to be vetting as you start thinking about leveraging AI inside of a company.
A lot of stuff to think about, a lot to unpackage there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, and speaking of implementing and integrating things into an organization, do you have some best practices that you can share for integrating AI tools into existing HR systems and workflows that we may have today?
Yeah. So first, I would say I'm just glad that you're talking about integrating. So many people are running at AI so quickly, they're not thinking about the potential consequences of their strategy downstream. And let me explain. There's the cloud phenomenon, for example. And this has happened with almost every technological advance, right? So in the beginning, we moved from client server based technology to cloud based technology. And the early movers got a advantage for a period of time doing that. But eventually it's a race to the middle, right? Where we all end up in the cloud and we're all back to a level playing field. Well, the problem that the cloud created, which it's been an amazing thing, but the one unintended consequence is it became so easy to bring in technology and we had such a ravenous appetite for it, we've overloaded our people with too much technology. Like we statistically have studies now that show the average company is using over 70 applications, and they're expecting people to be the integration strategy, to actually keep up with this tech stack. And guess what's happened? We're now seeing a diminishing return from every one of the technologies that we're investing in because we're only able to scrape a small percentage of what each of the applications we have are doing. We use the example of Excel. We ask people all the time, like if I asked you, Jared, what percentage of Excel do you think the average person inside a company is actually getting at as a percentage of the total capability?
I would probably have to say, if it's me, at least 72%. I love Excel. It's my Bible.
All
Most
right,
people
so
say probably that 10 to 15%.
All right, so I agree. Most we get is 5 to 15%. Now, Excel is an extreme example, but extrapolate something like that across your entire tech stack. And the reality is we're only getting a fraction of what they're capable of. And then we switch and switch and switch, trying to constantly get at more capability and not realizing it might have already been in the application that we had. And by bringing in more, we're just making it harder for our people. Then there's turnover and new people having to learn it. The reason I make that point is we don't want to do that with AI. And we're about to potentially do that. If we run out and we load up our desktop with 70 individual AI applications, and I've already seen this at some of my customers that got into this early, they literally have people who are like, I don't know which one to turn to for what thing that I need to do. And now they're turning to people in the company and saying, before I go in and try to do this, which one of these tools should I use? Or they're just going by process of elimination. All the value that AI was supposed to bring gets unhinged very quickly. So number one is think about your strategy holistically. Where do you want to see your AI being in 5, 7 years from now? And what's the best strategy and what's the best partners to do it? And one of those criteria should be the answer finally to this question, which is make sure that it's a strategy that includes integration into your existing and potentially future tech stack. You need a partner that's going to have those connections, because so much of what will make AI valuable inside of an organization is being able to cross those systems, not only to get data that they're going to have that AI will need to perform whatever function it's being asked to perform, which could be a co-pilot, which is aiding an employee doing their job, or autonomous AI, which are asking to just do end-to-end processes and get humans out of that work. It needs that. And so looking at that integration and making sure that it's not just going to be inside of one system, very siloed, or no integration whatsoever. You're just uploading a data set to it, and it's just going to kind of regurgitate information on that. Neither of those will help you realize AI the way you want to. And you could quickly end up realizing, oh my God, I bought 40 AI solutions across my company, and now I got to figure out, how do I centralize these? Or how do I, you could get into the same mess that we're into really quickly.
Okay. I believe I would equate that to maybe getting the cart before the horse, as one of my old mentors would say. Getting that cart first and putting all the AI in place without
Absolutely.
that strategy is
And
so
it's
dangerous. is.
It's understandable though. Like the pressure that I think we're all feeling to not get left behind on this. I mean, there's an attitude of AI or die, right? I mean, this idea of this is an extinction level event. Companies that embrace this are going to get such a demonstrable benefit and an advantage. Those that wait too long may never catch up. And that is accurate because there's this idea of companies moving at machine speed versus human speed. And the trick, though, is unlike cloud, where you could potentially just catch right up to where they are, those that get on that machine speed escalator, they're going to actually continue to accelerate. And so it's possible that the people who wait too long, if they start their journey a year or two later, they'll never get caught up because those companies aren't slowing down and standing in place. AI is evolving that fast. I was just on a call before this where we were discussing for a customer what AI in general is capable of doing today versus what it's not for a particular use case that they have. But that we're positive within 12 months, these AI models will be capable of doing 100%. So in this case, it's replying to emails. And it's an email that comes in that doesn't just have one request, but it has maybe 5 very different requests in it. Today, AI may be able to identify all 5 of those bespoke requests and then go do something with it. Maybe is the key word, though. It may not be able to. It may only pick up on 3 out of those 5, as an example. Flash forward 6 to 12 months from now, the models will 100% be able to figure out all 5 of those things and be able to take those over.
Amazing growth with that technology. I love
Yeah.
that. So I do have to take a trip back to ethical considerations again.
Okay.
Becca, one of our participants here today, has asked a question in the chat, and that is, I think I may know what your number one answer will be. But the question is, can you make recommendations of vendors that do prioritize confidential information?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I won't do too much of a self-serving commercial, but you're going to want to look for vendors like Krista. And what you're looking for is you want to find companies that are only going to use models, LLMs, and models that do not train on your data. That is really important. So it's basically just passing through it and it's not being trained. Therefore, you're not exposing yourself to any of that risk. I can't say specifically which vendors do and do not. And I can tell you that for some vendors, they'll have a mix. One price point where they will eat your data and do something with it, which they get a lot of benefit and value out of, and then a much higher price point if they are not going to. In our case, Krista only uses models that do not train on your data. We're an enterprise-only application. We're not a consumer-facing device, and it's really important for us. So as an example, like when we do maybe a Copilot for HR, where we're loading all a company's policies and procedures, handbooks, everything in so that those frontline questions that come into HR can be handled by the AI as opposed to someone in HR actually having to handle it. Well, more often than not, since all the employees in the company have access to Krista, we also suggest turn off access to any of those open AI products through your work computers and have all generative AI requests go through Krista. This way, your employees can still be free to use generative AI for creating emails and summarizing documents, but you don't have to worry that that information is going into a model that will actually take that data. So that's my best advice to you is just make sure you're asking that question or looking for that on someone's website when you're considering AI vendors.
Wonderful advice there. And that's, it's one of the things PuzzleHR absolutely takes into consideration with, it's probably won't be a secret to many people on here. PuzzleHR and Krista do partner up for some internal stuff here that PuzzleHR does. And that data privacy was a huge concern for us. So making sure that your clients, your customers have that same privacy, utmost importance in my humble personal opinion.
Definitely.
So I want to selfishly maybe because learning and development is my forte here at PuzzleHR. I want to ask how specifically can we use AI to improve things like training, learning and development, recruitment, or employee development in general?
Yeah, so we look at this quite a bit actually. I'd say it's one of our bread and butter offerings. So one of the areas where AI right out of the gate today is so valuable is in being that kind of augmented co-pilot to give employees superpowers. And so we really look at an organization and say, what kind of jobs do you have where you have probably a lot of turnover, people that have to learn a lot of information to be able to do their jobs? It could be call center people, sales people, inside or outside, you name it, and they just can't keep up with it. And you're constantly on this roller coaster, this hamster wheel of trying to get them to get up to speed. And then you get this huge productivity issue, right? Your first year rep productivity is terrible, and it takes to year 2 or 3 to get them there. So what we often say is, listen, the tools that we have today can only get you as far as we're getting today. But now if you add AI to this, and you add something like Krista that integrates not only with whatever you would have trained an employee on, but also plug her into, if you have a learning management system, if you have databases, if you have things like release notes, coming out all the time, and feed it to Krista or your AI of choice. And then what Krista does is acts as that co-pilot sitting next to the agent. So now, instead of the person saying, I don't remember this from training, I have to either go research it in these various systems, or find the data wherever it might be residing on my desktop in the cloud, in a system someplace, or go ask someone with tribal knowledge. That one poor person that gets called by all 30 people in the department every day, 100 times a day. Put all that in Krista. They then just have a conversation with an AI like Krista. Krista goes across all those different data sets and systems and then puts the answer right in front of them for them. And what that does is not only it increases their learning, because obviously they're not going to have to ask that question too many times before now it's embedded in their own knowledge. But there's studies on this that L&D people love, which is, you do something like that, you take a first-year rep and you make them the equivalent of a 3 to 5 year veteran from a productivity standpoint. Now, that immediately means that person is liking their job a lot more. That immediately means the chance of their turnover, because that's one of the reasons people leave, is they just don't feel like they're equipped to do the job that they've been hired to do. That goes away. So you also get that compounding effect. Well, that person likely makes it through year 1 into year 2 and beyond, which we know is that threshold we need to get them through to ensure longevity, which means another layer of productivity, because now your population is just more tenured in general. AI has that power, and we're seeing that unlock organization after organization. And L&D folks, you'll love this. We talk about the journey that we want clients to take on AI, and we say, hey, think big, but start small. Don't boil the ocean with your AI journey. But you know what we tell them to start? We say, start your journey with knowledge. It's the easiest, fastest, lowest lift way with a tremendous ROI behind it. And what a great way to get change management started in your company. It's not threatening. It makes the employee feel like you've invested in them, not trying to replace them, which is, of course, the knock AI gets is it's going to take my job, which we don't actually agree with. But this is the first step where you really show people, wow, AI can make my job better, easier, make me happier, etc. And then what we've seen from our clients, at least, the employees start asking them to give them more AI rather than pushing back on AI.
Wonderful. Really good question coming into our question and answer from Dan. And this is directed towards Krista, but I'll say AI in general.
Okay.
We've heard you say you have to feed it the data or give it data. How generally does that data get absorbed by AI? And when it's not able to answer something, does it get fed to a human? Does it go to a database? How does that work?
Yeah, well, I love this question. I'm going to give you 2 answers to this, the Krista and the non-Krista. So this is one of the things you're going to want to watch for as you start looking for AI vendors that are out there in the marketplace, right? And if you have unique data that you need to train, more often than not, most solutions require data scientists to do that, right? This is a very expensive role out there. And either they're going to expect you to have those data scientists and create and bring a model to the table, or that will be part of the cost to getting you up and running, is to build that model on your behalf and take your data, label it, etc. This is one of the things our founder looked at and said, this is going to be an impediment to mass adoption and truly realizing AI. So one of the things that Krista really is groundbreaking on is our AI is the data scientist. We actually are able to take your data, whether it's documents of any kind, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and you literally attach them to Krista like you would attach to an email. Krista consumes it and has her own AI algorithm that converts that into your model for you. And it does it in a matter of minutes. And you're instantly able to start, what we would say is going after it and asking them information. And then the really cool thing is that then AI maintains the model and ensures accuracy, because you've got to watch out for those hallucinations I mentioned, right? If your model is trained but missing the answer to a question, most AI will make up an answer or just freeze and say, I don't know. We don't want that. That's a bad experience either way. So we add this idea of a confidence score and human in the loop. These are also proprietary to us. So the first thing Krista does is she looks at the answer and she says, what's her confidence that she's got it right? And the client gets to say, for any given use case, I want her confidence at this percentile, or I want her to stop, not hallucinate, not freeze up. I want her to go ask for help from her mentor in that area, which then she turns to an employee and says, hey, I don't know what this is. Can you help me? Gets it so she can complete the task, but then adds it to the model. So next time she sees that, her confidence is higher and she can autonomously complete that answer or that task. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of perspective. You're going to want to look for all of those things. Otherwise, you could really ring up some tremendous time and expense, or have some back-end challenges to try to keep up with the demands your people, whether they're internal or external customers, have for it.
Okay. Another great question from the chat from Brittany. How do we figure out if the AI that we have trains on our data? Is there a simple way to do that?
Yeah, so there's not probably something, believe it or not, we have a video of this where one of our people went on OpenAI and asked it, are you training on our data? And it's funny because if you watch the video, it lies the first time and says it doesn't. And so the person then references the user agreement and the specific area in the user agreement that it says it does do that. And the AI comes back and says, well, you're actually correct. We actually do. It's somewhat of a funny video, but not that funny. The only way to be sure, since even asking your AI if it does won't necessarily give you the right answer, is to go look at the terms and conditions. It will be explicitly spelled out in there by law that they have to absolutely disclose the fact that they are doing that, or explicitly say that they are not doing that. That is the only way to 100% ensure that that's not happening. But I can promise all of you this: if you have employees and your company has given them, unfettered access to the tools, the free tools that are on the market, and you think they're using those, which most likely they are, every one of those free models absolutely takes that data and trains on it. And technically, if there is confidential information that's shared, that is a breach for sure of your organization.
So just to expand on that one, and I'm going to make an assumption here, which can be very dangerous, but my assumption is if you have an organization and we know people are using AI models that are out there in the public, the best practice is build into either your handbook or your company policy. There is no proprietary or confidential data allowed on these programs, just to keep your clients safe.
Yep, I would say that as well. But unfortunately, people will still make mistakes. The average person may not remember that policy, may not realize what they're sharing falls under this idea of personal, information or confidential information. So the real step you should take is making sure that your organization's, systems and networks are set up where those are blocked. And you would, likely either not provide them any AI opportunity, or you find a solution that you give them all to use that is safe and secure.
Wonderful, thank you. Question from Anna Wall. Thank you for this insightful session. Anna, thank you so much for being here, and thank you, Michael, for this amazing info so far. What do you recommend as a response to employees who feel they'll be soon replaced by AI? And also, what do you think about the issue of people using AI on Zoom or Teams meetings without letting participants know ahead of time?
Okay, two great questions. Let's break them apart. So there's no question that the stigma that is out there in large numbers is fear about this technology and it taking away jobs. Well, let's start with history has proven that has been believed or feared many, many times over the course of technological change. And in every single case, it has not happened. It has actually simply done what we believe AI will do, which is to remove the type of work from people that they shouldn't have to do, probably don't want to do, and replaced it with higher level learning that's actually more rewarding. We talk about this all the time. Let AI do what humans shouldn't do, and let humans keep doing what only humans should and can do that AI has no business nor is even capable of doing. And so it's about making people actually capable of doing more. I actually see it flipped. I see AI as the great leveler of our society. It can take people who don't have access to the same types of opportunities for education, and it can give them a tool that will allow them to upskill themselves to do things that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to do. So we do see it that way. Now, this is critical change management time. This is why we stress with every one of our clients, please think big, but start small. And there's a lot of reasons, but if one of the most important is change management has never been more critical for a company than what it is bringing AI into the organization. If we go too fast, put it in the wrong places, don't have our people involved upfront in the process in a way that helps them come along for the journey with us and see that this is not a scary bad thing, but there's a journey that's only going to make it better for them, not replace them. We will end up with some organizations that will certainly, do more harm than good because they simply went about it the wrong way. And then what was the second question for me,
The
Jared?
second part was the use of AI tools in Zoom or Teams meetings without the participants knowing.
Yeah, I agree with you. Doing it without knowledge does not make sense to me at all, because there's a ton that can be done with that information, and all really great opportunities that we unlock for clients all the time. Like that transcript can be not only summarized, but that's the type of information where you could train the AI to look for certain things that happen during the conversation and then actually go do things on behalf of the participants that would normally have to be things someone would manually do and potentially forget. And they can actually be done while the call's still taking place potentially.
Oh, Michael, I'm sorry, you may have hit the mute button there.
Sorry, how much did we miss?
It was maybe 3 seconds.
I bet you Zoom's AI tried to turn that off because it doesn't want me to say anything about it negatively.
It knows you're the competition. It's figured us out.
It does. So I don't know how much you missed, but I would add that there's a lot of good that can come from it, but I agree. It's something that should absolutely have to be exposed to the participants. Just like when we hit record, everybody is asked, you're aware that this is being recorded? I think it should also require AI is listening in on it, and it should be pretty overt. I've seen some solutions like Krista where it would actually be a fourth member you'd see on the screen over here, and you would be forced to explain to people, well, that's Krista. Krista's our AI. She's going to listen to this conversation. She's going to get the transcript. She's going to summarize it afterwards for us. And then there's a number of other things we've asked Krista to listen for and do if she hears them happen during the call. I think that's important.
Okay. So, speaking to that question and expanding to a great addition that Brittany has put into the chat, there could be concerns about recording laws in certain states or consent applying to AI. So to ask the question in the legal and compliance realm, what are the legal implications of using AI in HR, particularly concerning that portion of the question and employment law?
Yeah, so I'm not an attorney. We actually, have some really good ones that keep an eye out on this and watch it very carefully. We actually use the same firm that Sam Altman and the ChatGPT group use to try to stay up on it. Here's what I will tell you. The laws are way behind the AI at this point. Regulations are nearly non-existent. There's probably it's moving so fast, and government as is has a hard time keeping up with normal things. This is really probably outpacing them. If you're a company with a presence in Europe, I will tell you, EMEA has already put significant legislation and requirements in place around governance and security and things like that. The US, we haven't seen much from it. We've read what has been out. I can't say with certainty, but I don't believe there's any law that requires us to make somebody aware that they're dealing with an AI today. A lot of our clients, though, actually ask us to make it either obvious or actually have the conversation with an outside, like a customer, start with making them aware that it's AI. And there's ways to do that. You can either be overt or you use the type of voice that it's clear it's a robot versus the types of voices that are available to us today that you probably couldn't tell the difference unless you asked.
Absolutely. So when I'm looking at this and the laws and regulation, I kind of compare it to cryptocurrency.
Okay.
Great for
Yeah.
folks that don't like crypto, but when you look at the past for crypto, it was not regulated really whatsoever. And then all of a sudden, there's a big boom of we need regulation, we need help, we need clarity. It may be safe to assume that in the future that could happen. What are your thoughts behind that, or if it could impact anything with HR?
Yeah, listen, we expect that. You're right. It's like crypto. Once something becomes a problem, they'll act very quickly. And I think they're waiting a little bit too long. We can already see some of the things bubbling up with, not only privacy, but content ownership and, how these models are being trained on data that may not be theirs, lawfully to train off of. What I'd say is we should prepare for that. And Krista does exactly that. We are anticipating the potential regulations that are coming out, and we're making sure that we're including all those governance components into it. So there's that kind of protection up front, there's the security layers, and then there's also what we expect, which is this idea of annotation, which is basically documenting exactly what did the AI reference in order to answer this question or make this decision or prediction. And that's something that not very many systems do, but we would anticipate if there's legislation and there's some type of an event that happens, you're going to have to be able to defend that. I'll give you an example. It wasn't that long ago that we actually had not one of our clients, wouldn't have happened to one of our clients, a large airline where the AI was dealing with the customer and informed them that they would be able to use bereavement for a flight. The problem was that it was an after the fact situation, and their rules required a very different kind of timing of that. And unfortunately, in this event, for whatever reason, the vendor decided to double down and say, well, you have to accept that AI isn't always going to get it right. And they lost in court on that one, a big ruling against them that the AI really is at fault for giving bad information out, and the customer acted in good notice on that. So that is part of what we do have to keep an eye out on. And part of being able to defend that is showing, hey, your system did access the data and gave them the accurate information and didn't hallucinate or make something up that was wrong or misinterpretable.
Okay. Very important to realize, because as many people know with case law, once that one case is there, other judges, other courts, other juries use that to make their decisions. So that can really impact people in the future.
Sure.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about performance and efficiency. Performance, one of my favorite things to talk about. We always want our teams to be very high performing. When it comes to AI and HR, what metrics should we be able to use to ensure effectiveness of our models?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to leverage AI inside of an organization. In HR in particular, a couple of examples that I can give, and there's always a need to measure ROI. And we get excited because we're finding, 5 to 10x ROI on our use cases within a matter of a few months of deployment of those. So one example would be, you get a lot of questions that come into either HR or the manager or employees having to go do a bunch of research to answer their questions on their benefits or policies, or can I do this or can I do that? Right? Can I expense cell phone, or am I eligible for paternity leave? Those are things that often not only frustrate the employee because it's hard to necessarily get them the right answer quickly, but it bogs down an HR department where these pile up and pile up. So you could easily measure what percentage of those get deflected by AI taking care of them, and the reduction in how long it takes for the employee to get resolution on their question or request. So we look before at the volume and the time it takes on average to get back and the accuracy, and then we benchmark that against what were we able to achieve after a few months in the deployment of that to those people. Other examples in HR, believe it or not, is as much as, and I'm a product of the HCM technology space, as much as our tools we have for recruiting and onboarding and offboarding exist, they're very incomplete. And the user experience that they provide falls well short of what an AI experience could be. And they only work within that silo of the human capital management payroll application. That, to reach out across to other departments and other systems that may need to be invoked as a part of that employee coming into the organization, whether that's facilities, finance, the departments that order equipment for those people. Like, that entire experience with AI can be completely transformed. And it not only uplifts the experience for that employee who's joining the company, which we all know, they make a decision in a very short period of time, a matter of just a few days, about how they feel about their decision to join this company. And a lot of it is influenced by the technology that they're being introduced to. But also, it's really hard for the HR department to keep up with all the things that need to happen for that employee to be prepared. There's even people that they need to worry about, right? The hiring manager, for instance, have they done all the things that they need to do to make sure day one is ready for that? And who stays on top of that? Well, guess what? AI can do all of that for you and then really augment that payroll, human capital management, recruiting, and onboarding solution. And there's some really measurable things that you can look at, from time saved for HR, time saved for other departments, the experience for the employee. So we can find those before and after benchmarks in every use case for AI, because that's really what justifies AI. Because let's face it, unlike almost any other technology, we're not replacing something, we're augmenting and so we're a new thing. So we have to stand our own and prove that whatever you're spending on us is going to pay itself back 5-10x more very quickly for you.
Absolutely. So another one from Brittany, that really, really interesting question here. Do companies like Krista provide a one-stop shop per se for the experience that you're talking about? Or do we really need to have AI that talks to AI that talks to AI?
Well, you are hit on. If you were to have a meeting with Krista, we would actually tell you the story of our founder and how John is this technology guy who was inspired by Gene Roddenberry in Star Trek, and he watched the crew interact with the starship by just talking to it, and it basically operating across life support and navigation and weapon systems and transportation and everything. And he's like, that's where AI has to go if we're going to really unlock its potential. So then he looked at the landscape of what are the options that are available to us to bring that into our company and make our enterprise capable of being like that. He couldn't find anything. To this day, we are the only company that we found that built an enterprise-wide one-stop shop for AI across the entire business by connecting to all the business systems and all the departments and functions that we need to for whatever functions that we're looking to. And in our journey, over time, we expect to be intertwined and interconnected to almost every, if not every, department in an organization, so that you have that central AI that your people internally and externally turn to for whatever it is that you want AI to perform. We think that's the right way. We think that's the difference maker that prevents us from ending up in the same boat we've ended up with cloud software, which is 70, 80 bespoke applications that we can't keep up with. We need one AI, because 70 AIs will be worse than 70 cloud applications. It'll be tough for our people to figure out how to navigate which ones do I talk to and when do I talk to which.
Okay. So Brittany, your answer is yes, there is a one-stop shop. Go see Michael. Tell him Jared sent you. I'm sure he's going to treat you very, very well.
Very well.
So Michael, as we start to roll forward here and start to round this down, Becca, I didn't forget your question. I wanted to save it to this point because this is a very interesting one as well. So when we look at this, there's a lot of stuff we've talked about. And the question is, what's the importance, or can you make recommendations on a build policy and parameters we can hold our staff within with AI? And is there any type of template available or something that we could use to better get us started?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I will tell you, developing the strategy or the template for this is something that we actually are putting together right now. We see that need in the marketplace, which is kind of this buyer's guide on, how do you develop the strategy, right? So how do you get the vision of where you think you're going to want this to go so that you can figure out what the end looks like in order to be able to know where the starting point should be, and so that you get there and don't trip yourself up along the way. We have not been able to find tools like that in the marketplace. I think that's an example of just how fast this thing is moving. Some of the experts that we usually count on it, like Gartners and Forresters, they're playing catch up. And honestly, it was like a light switch for us. I can tell you this awakening that happened with ChatGPT not that long ago. Before that happened, when we were talking to clients, they thought we were crazy. They're like, this is too sci-fi. There's no way that this is here today or possible. And then as soon as everyone started playing with this, like, oh my God, it's here. It's real. It can do this already in 2023. It's capable of it. And the conversations shifted. I say that all to just say, don't feel bad if you have not been able to find something out there that gives you a playbook, a turnkey way to think about bringing it in, because we haven't been able to find it either. And so what we do is we help our clients by bringing our expertise to the table, one company at a time, and we engage with this think big, start small mentality, which is like, let's do this enterprise wide, but let's start with knowing that that's the end game, but where's the starting point? Because you really do need to take your first steps. And the advice I'll end on is, don't make the mistake of not starting to do some stuff. Don't go too far, because you got to make sure you don't have a lot to unwind, but you don't want to sit on the sideline on this one and kind of wait and see what other people are going to do. Because in this instance, we think this technology shift is different, and that those companies are going to pull away and get an insurmountable lead. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to push ourselves to start our AI journeys. And we see a lot of companies that we're surprised by. They started their journey a while ago by trying to build this stuff, and they realized they couldn't. So a lot of what we do is help people who failed with their do-it-yourself project make up for lost time and get them on that journey. But that is to say, companies are out there pushing the envelope on this, and actually have been longer than you might think.
Okay, very good, Michael. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do now is transition back over to our deck. Michael, I'd love to give you an opportunity to speak a little bit about Krista. And then if you can, I'll have you walk us through some key takeaways before we wrap up here. Sound good, my friend?
That sounds great. Let's do it.
All right. And
So,
Michael, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you guys. So listen, Krista is so proud to have been a part of this today and have the chance to speak to you and answer some of your questions. I think a lot of these points have been made, right? And I think they're really important. With Krista, we just think fundamentally different about how AI has to come in. We don't want companies to be on this hamster wheel. We have been on cloud and other technological evolutions where it's a race to the middle and diminishing returns. We want to fundamentally change how technology gets brought into the enterprise. So it starts with enterprise-wide as our mindset. A one-stop shop solution that you can plug in at whatever pace you want to. So you can start with just one use case in one department and build from there, because we only charge you for what you use. You don't have to buy the whole thing up front. It's very fast. This is a turnkey, not a no code or low code. This is a nothing like code solution. You won't need IT or developers. People in HR or people in whatever department are using Krista, the ones you give admin rights to, they'll be able to build and maintain everything themselves. We deploy this in a matter of a few weeks, and you're getting ROI shortly after that. As I mentioned, please do not forget, generative AI is only one of many AIs you need to have in order to safely and effectively use it. We bring over 15 types of AI into the mix, and we're agnostic. So the ability of being future-proof is really important. We mentioned how fast this is moving, right? AI is changing at a rapid clip. If you anchor yourself to one vendor that only uses one type of LLM, like OpenAI or Gemini or Anthropic, what if that model is no longer the best model? What if you need to change your CRM vendor from Salesforce to Oracle, or your payroll vendor from Paylocity to somebody else? You need a vendor that can plug those in and out. And with our AI integration, we bring in whatever AI we want for every client situation, and we're agnostic to the system. It doesn't matter. You literally could change payroll providers, and your users that are using Krista would never even knew that you did it. You also need that confidence and accuracy. So you got to have a vendor like Krista that's going to do things like confidence score everything they do, not hallucinate, ask people for help, retrain the model with that help, and ultimately annotate every single thing that she referenced to do whatever you've asked her to do in case you want to see it. And you need security. You need it built into the box here. So we have security at the user level, the system level, and the LLM level. What does that mean? You may give Krista things that certain employees shouldn't have access to. Krista will know that and not expose that information to them. On the flip, you're going to have information you don't want LLMs to have. Krista will make sure those LLMs never get access to information that they shouldn't have. So that's a little bit about us. We'd love to help anybody out there. We're really excited about our partnership and relationship with Puzzle, and we stand at the ready to help anyone in their AI journey.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And to wrap us up, some key takeaways, Michael.
Yeah, so key takeaways. AI implementations must prioritize fairness and unbiased decision-making and employee privacy. So we've talked a lot about what you need to look for from vendors and their terms and conditions. Be sure that you are. Successful AI adoption does involve integrating tools. Without the tools, there's no context. If we can't look up information about the employee asking the question so that the answer is specific to them, guess what we do? We don't give them an answer. We give them 4 questions they need to ask about themselves to figure out if they're eligible for paternity leave, as an example. We don't want that. So they need to integrate to the system to go look up the employee. Preparing and training employees is crucial. We've got to make sure change management is front and center. You do want to establish those clear metrics. Make sure you get a good baseline for the before AI and the after AI. And then that'll not only get you your ROI, but give you those next steps of opportunity. And then you want to make sure that everything is compliant with data protection laws and employment regulations, and they're going to be moving quick. So find a vendor that you know is going to stay on top of those laws and engineer that into their application. So it's not something you have to be responsible for. This is something you should outsource. As we say, AI is not a side hustle. It's not something you can do part-time. You are needing to be full-time focused on it, especially at the speed. And that's what vendors like Krista ensure you don't have to worry about.
Wonderful. Michael, thank you very much. And to all the participants today, thank you on behalf of Krista and behalf of PuzzleHR. You see that little QR code there? That's our link tree to get a hold of folks at PuzzleHR. Michael, I'm sure would love you to get a hold of the Krista team as well. I believe, Michael, that is Krista.ai. Am I correct?
Krista.ai is our website.
Awesome. And speaking personally, Michael, Luther, your whole team, you are an amazing partner to PuzzleHR. Thank you so much for what you do. We would put our name on you at any time. You are an amazing provider. Thank you for being here today. And thank you to everyone for joining this webinar. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from all of you very, very soon. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.